requested few times back if you could download this app called Gita app, Gita Base, or sometimes you can also get Veda Base on your phone. Maybe try to get Shrimad Bhagavatam on your phone or bring a book Bhagavatam with you. Makes it very easy to go through. Okay. So we'll go through the discussion of Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. It's going to be very, very philosophical. So if you have Bhagavatam, it will be nice. Otherwise, difficult to keep track. Because here we are getting the two most learned men talking philosophy. So it's going to be bouncing off from our heads if we don't stay connected. Upon this, the Lord spoke as follows. My dear sir, I can understand the meaning of the sutras like Janmad Asya Yataha, Shastra Yonitvat, and Atato Brahma Jigyasa of the Vedanta Sutra. But when you explain them in your own way, it becomes difficult for me to follow them. The purpose of the Shastra is already explained in them, but your explanations are covering them with something else. You do not purposefully take the direct meaning of the sutras, but indirectly give your own interpretations. Because if it doesn't do it indirectly, if it goes through the direct meaning of the Shastra, it becomes that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we are supposed to worship Him. But the only reason we are in this material world is because we don't want to accept that particular point, that we must worship Krishna. We want everybody to worship us. So based on that point, then we figure it out, different methods of how to make myself God. Shankaracharya, he once said, Dandadharana matrena naro narayano bhavit. As soon as you have the sannyas danda in your hand, as soon as you become a sannyasi, man becomes Narayana. He becomes God. So the Mayavadi sannyasis, when they meet each other, they go, Namo Narayana. It's like, oh, I bow down to Narayana. And the other sannyasi will reply back, Namo Narayana, I bow down to Narayana also. Crazy people. We were in Uttarkashi, going out on parikramas in Uttarkashi. Like, oh, Namo Narayana, Namo Narayana. So I thought Namo Narayana means they are saying, all glories to Lord Narayana. So we said Hare Krishna, they said Namo Narayana. I said Namo Narayana. I said, now you are correct. I was like, what do you mean? He says, now you have realized that you are Narayana, that I am Narayana, and very soon you will also become Narayana. And then we had some discussion, which they did not appreciate, and they threw us out of the ashram. Were you part of that parikrama? We got kicked out of the ashram at 8 o'clock at night, with nowhere to stay. And then we said we have small kids. He said, so what, just get out of here. Their actual point was, he says, you people don't take care of sadhus. Because you devotees in ISKCON, they don't take care of sadhus properly. If we come to your temple, you will charge us money to stay in your ashram. We have to pay for our food. Why should we keep you here for free? I said, you don't have to keep us for free. We are going out with you, begging, doing madhukari. He says, no, you can't live here. And then he said, it had happened with him that the in charge of that ashram, he was in Vrindavan and he got sick. He was so sick that he was hospitalized. Remember? He was hospitalized. And then some of our devotees, they were also there, hospitalized. And then the temple devotees went there with some fruits and fruit juices and the Mahaprasadam from Radheshyam. And they started giving to everybody over there. And they asked this particular person, sannyasi, which ashram are you from? And very nicely, proudly he said, I'm a follower of Shankaracharya. And devotees told him, you will go rot in hell. And they did not give him prasad. So that hurt him. And because of that, they told us that because I was ill-treated over there, just to release that anger, I'm going to kick you boys out of the ashram. So just threw us out in the ashram. There was no ashram ready to let us stay in their place. So we decided we are going to sleep under the tree. It was very cold. So we started, we had these plastic tunnels, these plastic bags. We covered ourselves with blankets and all those things we had. And then to just make it more interesting, it started to rain. So we are there sitting under the tree, getting wet. So somebody said, you go, there is this Babaji living alone. You can take shelter over there. So we have Ganga, and there are these steps. So 2 steps above Ganga, and then his ashram begins. So some water is coming into his ashram. So we went, when it's raining, can we live here? I said, who are you? Get out of here. Threw us out from there. And then finally we ended up living in some guest house, with 6 people in one room. Anyway, it was a very, very far out experience, not very good experience. But the good thing that happened after that is we decided to go to Vrindavan. We cancelled our whole trip and then we had a very nice time. We went to Vrindavan, Brajmandal Parikrama and like that. But yeah, Srila Prabhupada will mention, because these Mayavadis, their philosophy is so rigid, their hearts are turned, they become like stone. They can't deal properly with people. We'll come to it. The Lord thus attacked all the Vedantists who interpret the Vedanta Sutra fashionably, according to their limited power of thinking, to serve their own purpose. Such indirect interpretations of the authentic literatures like the Vedanta Sutra are hereby condemned by the Lord. The Lord continued, Srila Vyasadeva has summarized the direct meaning of the mantras in the Upanishads in the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, you do not take their direct meaning, you indirectly interpret them in a different way. The authority of the Veda is unchallengeable and stands without any questions of doubt. And whatever is stated in the Vedas must be accepted completely. Otherwise, one challenges the authority of the Vedas. The conch shell and cow dung are bone and stool of 2 living beings. But because they have been recommended by the Vedas as pure, people accept them as such because of the authority of the Veda. We may understand, we may not understand the situations that have been explained in the Vedas. But because it is said in the Vedas, it should be accepted as it is, without any personal thoughts put into it. Just because I don't understand it, I'm not going to accept it. The Vedas, they all mention it. Like Srila Prabhupada says, everything is in my books. If you read it in whichever way you want, you will get what you want to get from it. There was one particular devotee. He read the whole Shrimad Bhagavatam and concluded that Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he became a Shiva Bhakta. So whatever you want, you can derive from the books of Srila Prabhupada. It's so clearly Srila Prabhupada says, no? It's Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again and again, repeatedly, he says demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they are worshipping Krishna. But this person wanted to derive that Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he got it by reading Shrimad Bhagavatam, written by Srila Prabhupada. The idea is that one cannot set his imperfect reason above the authority of the Vedas. The orders of the Vedas must be obeyed as they stand, without any mundane reasoning. The so-called followers of the Vedic injunctions make their own interpretations of the Vedic injunctions, and thus they establish different parties and sects of the Vedic religion. Lord Buddha directly denied the authority of the Vedas, and he established his own religion. Only for this reason, the Buddhist religion was not accepted by the strict followers of the Vedas. If Krishna himself wants to deny the Vedas, who can challenge him? He himself is the Veda. He comes to establish the Veda. He is the one who gave the Veda to Lord Brahma to be passed down in disciplic succession. But he himself comes to destroy the authority of the Veda. What was the reason? It was us. The people on the authority of the Vedas started intensely killing animals, which the Veda themselves say it should not be done in the age of Kali. But, Jivhera Lalasa, Mahaprabhu says, because of the desire of, the taste of your tongue, the living entity runs around here and there, searching where can I get the taste. So like that, they wanted to kill animals just for their own personal sense gratification. And Lord Buddha, Lord Krishna, he said, this cannot be done. This cannot be continued. So he appears as Lord Buddha, completely destroys the authority of the Veda. And at that time, there was no one who could challenge it. And therefore, the Acharyas, they mention, to bring us back onto the line of Veda, then the Lord requested Shankaracharya to appear, Lord Shiva to appear. Just bring them back on track. So Lord Shiva appears as Shankaracharya and he establishes the impersonal philosophy. But at the same time, there are many instances where he is presenting the personal form of the Lord. For example, the Jagannath Ashtakam that we sing, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Pathagami Bhavatume. Oh Lord, you are on the path of my vision. I want to see you. Oh Lord Jagannath, I really want to see you. That song was sung by Sripad Shankaracharya. There is Krishna Ashtakam. You name it, those kind of Ashtakams based on those particular Lord have been written by Shankaracharya. At the end, he gave his final instructions as Bhaja Govindam, Govinda Bhajatu Mudhamate. Oh, you foolish being, start worshipping Lord Govinda. And then, such direct meaning. Worship Govinda. When you say Govinda, it doesn't mean, my friend living in next door. It means Krishna. But then, these people have a habit of always interpreting things in different way. So they say, actually, Shankaracharya, the Govinda he's talking about, is his own Guru, Govinda Swami. So he is saying that you worship my Guru. But according to their own philosophy, as soon as you take sannyas, you step on your Guru's head and you become God. Because he was God. So now you are God and he is not God. So doesn't make any sense. And people in general, they have this, nowadays it's much different. But in the past, if it doesn't make any sense, it must be something beyond your capacity to understand. So it must be very, very exalted, extraordinary. So you take it as truth. By Krishna's mercy, nowadays generation, they say, I don't understand, explain. If you can't explain, you reject. So before that it was like, it doesn't matter, you understand, you don't understand, you just follow. And that's why people don't know. Why is the Veda the way, why it talks about things that it talks about? What is Krishna consciousness? Because never came down. And then these Mayavadis take benefit of that particular situation and they tell you varieties of things. You will see, Prabhupada is explaining. The example given by the Lord of the conch shell and the cow dung are very much appropriate in this connection. If one argues that since cow dung is pure, the stool of a learned Brahmana is still more pure, his argument will not be accepted. The cow is just an animal, but he is my Guru Maharaj. Such an advanced personality. This particular devotee chants 64 rounds every day. His stool must be more pure. You don't take that advice. Because I think only Maharaj Rishabhadev, an incarnation of the Lord, to stay away from people, he used to smear his own stool all over his body. There's a different story that his stool smelled like aguru wood and has fragrant, but he was one exception that you can deal with. The Vedic injunctions are self-authorized, and if some mundane creatures adjust the interpretation of the Veda, it defines their authority. It is foolish to think of oneself as more intelligent than Srila Vyasadeva. He has already expressed himself in his Shastras, and there is no need of help from personalities of lesser importance. His work, the Vedanta Sutra, is as dazzling as the midday sun, and when someone tries to give his own interpretation on the self-effulgent sun-like Vedanta Sutra, he attempts to cover this sun with the cloud of his imagination. Srila Prabhupada always mentioned, just don't try to interpret the Veda, because your senses are limited. They are incomplete. With incomplete senses, how much can you understand? That's why take the authority of Shastra as it is. Follow the authority of the previous Acharyas. Follow the authority of other Vaishnavas. Because they have understood from their spiritual master, and it is coming down in generations, in disciplic succession. That's why it is transcendental and can be accepted without questions. The Vedas and Puranas are one and the same in purpose. They ascertain the supreme absolute truth, which is greater than everything else. The absolute truth is ultimately realized as the absolute personality of Godhead with absolute controlling power. As such, the absolute personality of Godhead must be completely full of opulence, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Last class we mentioned about this. They are the 6 qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anybody who has these 6 qualities is called Bhagavan. Okay, we'll read it out again. Opulence, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Maybe we can go through people and we can just say one each. So the first one is opulence, strength, fame, beauty, renunciation, knowledge. Knowledge. The 6, anybody who has it in complete form, he is God. Everybody else is not. We also gave an example. Sometimes Narada Muni in Bhagavatam is referred to as Bhagavan. Lord Shiva is referred to as Bhagavan. Sometimes even Sutta Goswami is referred to as Bhagavan. Why? Because they have one of this quality in a very great amount. If the person, your spiritual master, he's very knowledgeable, he's very renowned, he's famous, so he's a Chota Bhagavan. Yeah. You can call them as Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a respectable way of calling somebody senior. So if somebody has these 6 qualities, he can naturally be called Bhagavan. But Krishna has it in complete form. Nobody has it more than him. That's why he's the Parama Bhagavan. He's the God of all gods. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many, for Lord Shiva, Srila Prabhupada writes Personality of Godhead. But for Krishna, he writes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, the transcendental personality of Godhead is astonishingly ascertained as impersonal. Mahaprabhu is saying, even though he has these 6 qualities, you call him impersonal. Nowadays, there is a very famous group in India. They are the followers of one Babaji called Nirankari Baba. Sardarji, he has a big turban. He says, and they have their slogan, only you are impersonal. That's their Mahamantra. Only you are impersonal. And who is that you? Krishna. Everybody else is personal. Only he is impersonal. You ask him why? He says because we can't see him. You can't interact with him. There was another devotee. He wrote a song. recently. He said, you never tried to call him like Mother Yashoda did. Why will he come to you? You never tried to love him like the gopis did. Why would he come to you? You never showed friendship towards Krishna like Arjuna did. Why would he come to you? And because he doesn't come, how can you call him an impersonal person? Impersonal person. But they always work very hard to find ways of diminishing the energy of Krishna. Oh, he is impersonal. Oh, you can't approach him. So whom we can approach? Oh, you can approach me. I'm the great Babaji sitting here. You come to me, I'll bless you with whatever you feel, you want. And because I'm blessing you, now you can worship me. I'm God. There are many such gods sitting in jail now. There is one very famous person in South India. His name is Swami Nityananda. If you hear his classes, you feel like he's a Vedic, stand-up comedian. What he says, nobody understands. I'll give an example. No, forget it. I will have to go and take bath in Ganga after that. You can search for Swami Nityananda comedy and you will hear them. The impersonal description of the absolute truth in the Vedas is given to nullify the mundane conception of the absolute whole. The only reason the Vedas talk about him as impersonal is so that you don't think of him as a mundane person. Many people say Krishna is just a very empowered human being. These Mahavaris, they say, when Param Brahma, the Supreme Brahman, the effulgence, the light, got in touch with Maya, had a fall down. And with this fall down, he became Krishna. So the question arises, if he is the Supreme, how can he get contaminated by Maya and fall down? Because if he can get contaminated and fall down, that means Maya is Supreme. She can put her under her influence. So he has no, the light has no full power. No. Maya means illusion. It doesn't exist. So according to them, something that exists, even though if it's a light, comes in connection with something which doesn't exist and falls down and becomes Krishna. Anybody understood what I just said? I didn't understand it either. So that's why it gives Krishna is personal and impersonal at the same time. Once Janani Prabhu was mentioning, even the impersonal form of the Lord is so attractive that many times living entities, they want to give up their own form to be part of his form. So if his impersonal form is so attractive, just imagine how attractive must be Krishna himself in his form. There is one particular pastime from Ramanujacharya's life. One day Ramanujacharya, he goes to take darshan of Ranganath Swami, Lord Vishnu lying down in Sri Rangam. On the way, he sees there is one wrestler. He's holding an umbrella over his wife, and he's walking backwards. And the wife is walking front, and he's walking backwards. And Ramanujacharya sees this is very strange. Imagine you hold an umbrella over your wife's head, and you're looking at your wife and walking backwards. Ramanujacharya says, What's this? He says, oh, he's a completely materialistic person, very attached to his wife. He says, I want to meet him. They called him. Ramanujacharya says, why are you walking like this? It's because my wife is so beautiful. I cannot just stop. I cannot not look at her. I always have to admire her beauty. He says, but why are you holding the umbrella? Oh, so the sun will not bother her. She will remain this, fair and beautiful and like that. He says, so what are you looking for? Is that the beauty or is it your wife? And the wrestler says, it's her beauty. If I show you someone who is more beautiful than your wife, would you give up your wife? He said, certainly yes. Says, okay, come with me. So they take him in front of the Lord. And Ramanujacharya requests Ranganath Swami, the Lord, he says, "My dear Lord, please give him a glimpse of your Mohini form." And then the Lord accepts. Immediately this wrestler sees Mohini Murti. That's it. He's stuck. He doesn't even blink. He's stuck there. Nobody else is seeing. Only he is seeing. The wife is wondering, what is this guy looking at this black deity, stone there? He says, "Okay, let's go." He says, "You go. I'm not coming." He says, "But why?" He says, "Look, he is so beautiful. You are nothing in comparison." He says, "So what, you're going to leave me?" "Of course, he is more beautiful." Then she started begging Ramanujacharya, "Please, save my husband." So Ramanujacharya, he requests the Lord comes back to his regular form, and he is so attracted to the form of Sri Ranganatha Swami that he says, "I want to serve this person. I will want to dedicate my whole life at his lotus feet." And Ramanujacharya says, "For now, you go back with your wife. Become a proper grihastha, and you come every day to serve the Lord." And like that, he made this wrestler a devotee of Krishna. So even just that particular form of Krishna is so beautiful, that he saw. He got so mesmerized. He says, "Forget it. You go. I'm staying." So these people, they don't understand that aspect, and they only get stuck as the impersonal form. They don't want to understand him being a personal, him being a person, because if he is a person, I have to dedicate my life to him. Once I was, I was going to Pune. On the way, it was 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight. There is this gentleman sitting next to me. I was chanting my japa, and he says, "You are from Hare Krishna temple?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Oh, so nice. You people are doing, all those nice words." And he says, "But one thing you don't understand." "What's that?" He says, "Why do you worship the murti, the statues? God is impersonal." I was like, "Hare Krishna." And then, but he was such a learned person. Every point I made, he had a point to defeat the purpose. We were going back and front, back and front, back and front for 1.5 hours. We were going back and front. And at one point, he made this point: is when the Supreme Brahman falls into Maya, then he becomes God, and he comes down to this earth. And then I was praying to Narasimha, "Please help me, finish this guy off. I can't handle this anymore." And immediately this thought came, okay, so if he is supreme, how can he fall in Maya? And if he falls in Maya, how can he be supreme? Explain this. And he says, "You have crossed over the ocean. I have no words to speak." And I said, "Okay, swim with me. Let's go on the other side of the ocean." He says, "No, I'm a dog's tail, which is always remains bent. Doesn't matter how much." I said, "What kind of a guy are you? If you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God and he has a form, why you would not accept that he, to just follow him in that particular way?" He says, "Because I am a dog's tail." And then he just laid down, turned his head up and went to sleep. couldn't admit it that he has to serve Krishna. Brahman, being full of opulence, is understood to have manifold energies. And all these energies are classified under 3 headings under the authority of Vishnu Purana, Canto 6, Chapter 7, verse 60, which says that the transcendental energy of Lord Vishnu are primarily 3. His spiritual energy and the energy of the living entities are classified as spiritual energy, whereas the material energy is an inferior one which is sprouted out of ignorance. This is our philosophy. We talk about the 3 energies. We have the Bahiranga, the Tatastha, and the Antaranga Shaktis of Krishna. The energy of the living entities is technically called Kshetragya energy. This Kshetragya Shakti although equal in quality with the Lord, becomes overpowered by material energy out of ignorance and thus suffers all sorts of material miseries. In other words, living entities are located in the marginal energy between the superior, spiritual, and inferior, material energies. And in proportion to the living being's contact with either the material or spiritual energies, the living entity is situated in proportionately higher and lower levels of existence. Sometimes it becomes spiritual, sometimes it becomes material. Here today is Purushottam month, there is Ekadashi. There were, so many people going to take bath in Ganga because they want to get some devotional benefit. And then they're there chanting japa, chanting their Gayatri, taking bath. So that's the jiva when they are in complete mode of, in goodness, they are under the mode of Antaranga Shakti, the spiritual energy. But the same living entities, after some time they have chanted their rounds, Ekadashi is over, next day they say, okay, let's put our pants and t-shirts on and go to Krishna Nagar to watch some movies. Then they fall under the category of the material energy. Now we have to decide which position we want to be in. Which is going to be the majority? Is it going to be the material energy, or do we want to be under the spiritual energy? Depending on that mood, the only thing actually the jiva can do is make a decision. That's the only thing he can do. He can decide what he wants to do. He decides, I want to be Krishna conscious. Krishna starts providing things for him to be more and more Krishna conscious. Being going in that particular line, if he decides, too much of spirituality, I need something material now, I'm craving for something material, then Krishna provides material things, then he goes into material things. He gets kicked around by Maya a few times, he says, this is really too much, let's get back to spiritual life again. Many times it has happened with devotees, like sincerely chanting Hare Krishna, 16 rounds every day, Mangala Arati, following for regulative principles, and then at one point they're like, oh, this is too much. Need little Maya, let's go and watch Lord of the Rings or something, or Harry Potter, or they go watch some movie, and then they get it, okay, check your, Facebook, and then go into, the one status, second status, third status, and they go, and the Japamala is in their hand, they are going through their different statuses, and at one point they figure it out, it has been 3 hours and they haven't chanted 2 rounds yet, and then they're like, oh, this is Maya, they put it down and start chanting again and again, and we get serious. This happens in all of our life sitting in this room every day. Right? Normal thing happens every day. But we have to make a decision of what we want to do. Where we want to stand. We see devotees, you go, in the temple, we have devotees like Janani Vasprabhu. Sits there and just chants japa. You ask him some question, even if it is something related to material life, he thinks about it for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then he gives you an answer which is Krishna conscious. There are many devotees in Mayapur, for them chanting 64 rounds every day that's what you do. Yeah. So we have to make a decision where we want to stand. We are in the middle. Do we go left side, do we go right side? We have to make a decision. The Lord is beyond the inferior and marginal energies as above mentioned. And his spiritual energy is manifested in 3 different phases, as eternal existence, eternal bliss, and eternal knowledge. Sat, Chit, Ananda. As far as eternal existence is concerned, it is conducted by the Sandhini potency. Similarly, bliss and knowledge are conducted by the Hladini and Samvit potencies respectively. As the Supreme Energetic Lord, he is the supreme controller of the spiritual, marginal, and material energies. And all these different type of energies are connected with the Lord in eternal devotional service. Eternal devotional service. It's going on. That's why when we are involved in deity worship, sometimes we feel like doing puja, sometimes we feel like not doing puja. Sometimes we go outside to take prasadam in somebody else's house and we forget about the Lord. He's sitting there. What happens in those situations? Radharani is going to make sure that the service happens. Doesn't matter if we do it or we don't do it. It's going to happen. We have to make a choice. Do we want to be part of that service or no? They are serious in their Krishna consciousness. Well, just like a mother. When the baby is there, when the child is there, she is going to do everything for the child. Now, others may decide if they want to take part in that service or don't want to take part in that service. That is the decision made by individual jivas. Then that denotes how spiritually do we progress or we go down. There is no level on the spiritual path where we are stable. Either we are going up or we are going down. It's never going to be stable. It's constantly moving. It's eternal. So that's why Srila Prabhupada mentions we always have to strive to develop our own standards. Because when we are developing our standards, we know at least we can be on one level. But if we try to be on that level, for sure, guaranteed, we are going to start falling down. That's why we have to constantly work hard and work hard and work hard till it becomes a normal lifestyle. Till japa becomes for us a second nature. We are always chanting. 16 rounds is something that we do. It doesn't mean that 16 rounds we have done and it's like, I finished. Srila Prabhupada once he did that. He finishes 16 rounds, he says, I have finished my 16 rounds, now I can do whatever damn thing I want. That's one of his statements, commenting on us. We finish our 16 rounds and we roll up the bead bag, put it somewhere down that we don't have to look at it for the next day. So we don't even remember that we have to chant japa anymore because we have finished it. So constantly we have to engage ourselves in varieties of service. We chant japa, we perform the ham seva. And sweeping, and just cleaning your house in Sridham Mayapur is service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're cleaning the holy dham. You get the benefit for that. Cooking in the holy dham, walking in the holy dham, sleeping in the holy dham, they all have benefits. So we are constantly working on how we progress ourselves in Krishna consciousness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is thus enjoying in its transcendental eternal form. It is not astounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord non-energetic. The Lord is a controller of all energies, and the living entities are part and parcels of one of the energies. Therefore, there is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the living entities. How, then, can one say the Lord and the living entities are one and the same? Like we were mentioning before, the Mayavadis, they want to say that we are God, Namo Narayana. We are God. But how can it be? Yeah, on the level of quality, yes, because we are also eternally blissful, eternally knowledgeable, eternally happy. We are there. That's a part of our nature. But Krishna is in its complete form. We are less. We are small. That's why we are called Anu. Anu means very, very minute. 1/10,000th of a tip of a hair. How much can we get? But the energy of the Lord that is given to us, that 1/10,000th of a tip of a hair, that living entity can run a body which is this big, 5 feet, 6 feet. It can run a body which is as small as an amoeba, one cell living entity. It can run as big as body as an elephant. Depending on your capacity, you move up and down. But how much do we take it seriously? If we understand it very clearly, then we become Krishna conscious. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are all inferior energies of the Lord. That's what our body is made of. Be it subtle, be it gross. This is what it's made of. Earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And they are all inferior energies of the Lord. But the living entity are different from all as superior energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita 7.4. The transcendental form of the Lord is eternally existent and full of transcendental bliss. How then can such a form be a product of material mode of goodness? Anyone, therefore, who does not believe in the form of the Lord is eternally a faithless demon, and as such is untouchable, a not to be seen person, non grata, fit to be punished by the Platonic king. If you don't accept the authority of the Lord as a person, you're fit to go to hell. You are a demon. That's why, anyway, Shripad Madhvacharya, he calls Shankaracharya as a demon. Somebody said, oh, but he wrote so many nice ashtakams for the Lord. He wrote Jaganashtakam, Krishna Ashtakam. He wrote so, on Lord Vishnu, he wrote so many ashtakams are there. How can he be a demon? He says, no. That time he's Lord Shiva. But when Shiva gets, haunted, he becomes demon, and that's Shankaracharya. And he goes up to such an extent because Madhvacharya, Shankara, like Lord Buddha, denied the authority of the Vedas. Shankaracharya said, no, there is Veda. God is there, he exists, but he is impersonal. And then Madhvacharya completely destroyed the philosophy of Shankaracharya to such an extent that the Lord was so pleased by his service, he said, I want to gift him something. I want to dedicate something to him. What can I give it to Madhvacharya? He said, I will become his disciple. That's why he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the disciplic succession of Shripad Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya says, he says, every morning one should meditate on the form of Shankaracharya when you go to the toilet and pass stool on his head. Because he is a demon who denies the personal form of the Lord. So even today, the followers of Madhvacharya, they have a specific mantra when they go to the toilet. They chant that mantra which says that Shankaracharya is a demon, and they meditate on his head and they pass stool on his head. We don't do that. Because Mahaprabhu, he has mentioned, he said, Acharya kunu dosh nahi. When he says Acharya, when you say God, God means Krishna. When you say Acharya, Acharya means Shankaracharya. When you want to describe somebody else, then you say Shripad Ramanujacharya, Shripad Madhvacharya, you say Nimbaka Swami, Vishnu Swami. But if you just say Acharya, that's Shankaracharya. And Mahaprabhu says, Acharya kunu doshni. It's not his fault. It's the fault of his followers who completely mess the whole thing up. Not understanding the instructions of their own Guru Maharaj. They give all these mundane interpretations and completely destroyed the philosophy of Shripad Shankaracharya. Yes, Mataji. Please. Yes. 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 No, that's why I said we don't do that. It is the Madhvas who do. Because for them, they don't accept the philosophy. And that was actually the whole plan. Lord Buddha comes, he stops the Vedic injunctions because, the Brahmins and Kshatriyas, they got so much engrossed in meat eating that Lord Buddha had to come and stop it. Then, when everybody started becoming Buddhist, the Varnashram system had to be re-established. So that's why Shankaracharya was told to come. He came, he re-established the whole Veda. again. Then Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, and all the Vaishnava acharyas, they come and establish the personal form of the Lord. And finally, Lord Chaitanya comes, combines all these philosophies together, and gives his philosophy as being impersonal and personal at the same time. Is Achintya Bheda Abheda. He is impersonal, but he is not. And that's the conclusion of all the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. And then Srila Prabhupada comes and brings it to every town and village in the world. So now we know what to follow. We follow the authority of Srila Prabhupada, and we go back home, back to Godhead. That is we don't disrespect Shankaracharya. We have great respect for him. Pranava Om, or the Omkara in the Veda, is the primeval hymn. This transcendental sound is identical with the form of the Lord. All the Vedic hymns are based on this Pranava Omkara. Tattvamasi is but a side word in the Vedic literatures, and therefore this word cannot be the primeval hymn of the Vedas. Sripad Shankaracharya has given more stress on the side word Tattvamasi than on the primeval principle Omkara. Tattvamasi means I am that. So it's one of the Mahavakyas. Shankaracharya calls it as the Mahavakya of the Veda. But Tattvamasi, I am that. That is Krishna. So I am Krishna, I am God. And he has given so much more stress on that point than on the Omkara itself. The Lord thus spoke on the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propagandas of the Mayavada school. There's a footnote. In our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, we have more elaborately explained all these philosophical intricacies. Shrimad Bhagavatam clarifies them all. The Bhadracharya tried to defend himself and his Mayavada school by the jugglery of logic and grammar, but the Lord defeated him by his forceful arguments. He affirmed that we are all related with the personality of God eternally, and that devotional service is our eternal function in exchanging the dealings of our relations. The result of such exchanges is to attain prema, or love of Godhead. When love of Godhead is attained, love for all other beings automatically flows, because the Lord is the sum total of all living beings. The Lord said that but for these three items, namely eternal relation with God, exchange of dealings with Him, and attainment of love for Him, all that is instructed in the Veda is superfluous and concocted. The Lord further added that the Mayavada philosophy taught by Sripad Shankaracharya is an imaginary explanation of the Vedas, but it had to be taught by him, Shankaracharya, because he was ordered to teach it by the personality of Godhead. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that the personality of Godhead ordered his lordship Shiva to deviate the human race from him, the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead was to be so covered so that the people would be encouraged to generate more and more population. If you become very Krishna consciousness, then you don't get into the effects of lust, anger, and greed. So less people, the more people has to be there. So deviate from him, and so everybody became Mayavadi, lusty people. His Lordship Shiva said to Devi, "In the Kali Yuga, I shall preach the Mayavada philosophy, which is nothing but clouded Buddhism in the garb of a Brahmin." After hearing all these speeches of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya was struck with wonder and awe and regarded him in dead silence. The Lord then encouraged him with assurance that there was no cause to wonder. I say that devotional service unto the personality of Godhead is the highest goal of human life. He then quoted a shloka from the Bhagavatam and assured him that even the liberated souls who are absorbed in the spirit and the spiritual realization also take to the devotional service of Lord Hari, because the personality of Godhead has such transcendental qualities that he attracts the heart of liberated souls too. That's one of the qualities. Even if you're liberated, you're detached from the material world, that only brings you to the level of liberation from the material world, which means you can enter the Brahma Jyoti. If you are detached from the material world, you can attain Brahma Jyoti. But to attain Goloka Vrindavan, you have to get attached to Krishna. If you are not attached to Krishna, you don't go back home, back to Godhead. And if you are, even if you have attained Brahma Jyoti, you fall down to the material world. His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Swami was mentioning that anybody who falls from the Brahman level, what's there? There is nothing there. You can't think, you can't feel, you can't express. There is nothing. So how long can a living entity who is Sat, Chit and Ananda reside there for a long time? So he decides, I don't want to stay here. And then he falls. And Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj in one of his lectures was saying, when he falls, he carries that element of Brahma Jyoti with him, and it becomes a diamond in the material world. And then from diamond, it grows back, when he comes to the level of human being, he may again get an opportunity to perform devotional service, to go back home, back to Godhead. So just detachment from the material world is not enough. You have to get attached to Krishna. Hare Krishna. We'll end the class here. Anybody has any comments or any more questions?
Do you know about those diamonds? Becomes a diamonds are living things?
Yes. Once a devotee, he asked Srila Prabhupada, because sometimes somebody said the stones are living entities too. And the devotees asked, Srila Prabhupada, they were walking on some hill area or somewhere. Are the stones alive? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, but not the dead ones. So stone is also one of the species of life. So the jiva does get into the form of a stone. Then you have a body which eats the stone. That form is called Vajrakita. Their food is stone, they eat it. And then the funny thing is, our deity of Narasimhadev here, he's carved from a live stone, the stone that had life. Now how to understand if the stone has life or if it is dead? So the person who made the deity of Narasimhadev, he said there are two tests. The first one, you have these bugs called Vajrakita who eat stone. When they eat, if they make a hole which is see-through from one end to the other in a straight line, that stone is alive. If it just moves around in whichever direction, that stone is dead. That's the first test. The second test is you hit the stone with a metal in 7 different places, and in each place it will make a different sound. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. So if it does that, that's a live stone. That's why to make our deity took few years, because it took them, I think, about 6 months or to a year to just find a stone that they can make a deity of Narasimhadev with. And they said if you make a deity of Lord Vishnu from a live stone, that particular deity can start giving blessings. They interact with other devotees, and he's doing that. You interact with the Lord, he interacts with you. So yes, diamonds can also be living entities. We may have fewer living entities in our earrings and our Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So we will end the class here. Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. Will do Sandhya.